a frightened girl, a trained police dog, and a simple gesture that saved a life. What happened that cold November afternoon in Portland, Oregon, would forever change the way local police viewed canine work. But before I tell you this incredible story, if you enjoy exciting and inspiring stories about our four-legged heroes, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting the bell so you don't miss any stories. It all started on an ordinary Tuesday. Officer Marcus Thompson was doing his routine patrol in the southern region of Portland with his inseparable partner, Rex, a 5-year-old German Shepherd, veteran of search and rescue operations. Rex wasn't just any K9. With over 200 hours of specialized training, he had an impressive track record. He had located 47 missing persons, participated in 89 successful operations, and had a 94% accuracy rate in danger detection. Marcus was 38 years old and had been with the police for 15 years. He had grown up in a family of police officers. His father, Richard Thompson, had served for 32 years before retiring, and his grandfather before him. But Marcus was the first in the family to work with canines, and it happened almost by chance. During a rescue operation 5 years ago, he had witnessed a German Shepherd locating a lost child in the forest in less than 2 hours. At that moment, something changed inside him. He knew that was what he wanted to do. When Marcus was first introduced to Rex, the dog was only 18 months old. He was a large puppy, full of energy, but with impressive focus for his age. The trainers said Rex was special, that he had intuition beyond the ordinary. Marcus didn't fully believe it at the time. He thought it was just marketing, their way of selling the program. But as the months passed, working side by side with Rex every day, he began to understand what the trainers meant. Rex didn't just follow commands. He seemed to understand contexts, assess situations, make decisions. There was a brilliant intelligence behind those brown eyes. Marcus remembered a specific occasion about 2 years ago when they were chasing a suspect who had broken into a residence. Rex had the man cornered in an alley, but instead of attacking as he was trained to do, the dog stopped. He simply stopped and looked back at Marcus. That's when Marcus realized the man was having an epileptic seizure. It wasn't a criminal running away. It was someone in medical crisis who had entered the wrong house in a state of confusion. Rex had noticed this before any human. On that Tuesday in November, around 3 in the afternoon, Marcus and Rex were called to check an anonymous tip about strange movement at an abandoned house on Maple Street. The call had come in around 2:20, a female voice, nervous, saying she had seen a suspicious car parked in front of the property several times in recent days, cars with dark windows, men going in and out carrying boxes. The woman didn't want to identify herself, but left the address. It was an old 2-story building with broken windows and a yard completely overgrown with weeds. The house had been built in 1952, Marcus would discover later, and belonged to a family that had moved to Arizona 3 years ago. They tried to sell the property, but the market was difficult in that region of Portland, so it stayed there, empty, slowly deteriorating, the kind of place that neighborhood kids avoided passing by after the sun went down. There were stories, of course. There are always stories about abandoned houses, ghosts, strange rituals, things that are part of urban folklore. K9 Unit 7 arriving at location. Marcus spoke into the radio while parking the squad car a few meters from the property. He followed all protocols, positioning the vehicle strategically, leaving a clear escape route in case it was necessary. Rex, always alert, already had his ears up, focused. The dog was in his standard position in the back seat, behind the protective gate, but Marcus could see from his body language that Rex was in full work mode. There was something different in the air that afternoon, a tension that even humans could feel. The sky was cloudy, with that characteristic gray color of Portland in autumn. The temperature was around 8 degrees, with a cold wind that made dry leaves dance on the sidewalks. Marcus felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. As they approached the house, Marcus noticed something strange. The front door, which should have been locked and sealed by the city, was ajar. The municipal seal was broken, the yellow tapes torn. Recent tire marks in the damp dirt of the driveway indicated that someone had been there recently. They weren't old marks, worn by time. They were fresh, probably from at most 1 or 2 days ago. Marcus opened the rear door of the squad car and Rex jumped out with athletic elegance. The dog immediately began sniffing the air, his head moving from side to side, processing hundreds of odors simultaneously. For Rex, the world was much richer than for humans. Where Marcus saw only an old house, Rex detected complex layers of information. How many people had been there, when, in which direction they went, if they were nervous or calm. All of this was in the air, waiting to be read by a trained nose. Rex, search, commanded Marcus with his hand on his weapon, following all the safety protocols he had learned over the years. Never assume a location is empty. Never let your guard down. These were lessons that had been engraved in his mind since the academy. The dog advanced carefully, his paws barely making a sound on the ground covered with dry leaves. Rex had a way of moving that was almost feline, silent and precise. But then something unexpected happened. From a second-floor window, the face of a girl briefly appeared. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. Dark brown hair, somewhat messy, small, pale face. Her eyes were wide, not with curiosity but with pure fear. It was the kind of fear that Marcus had learned to recognize in his years of service. It wasn't the mischievous fear of a child who invaded forbidden property. It was genuine terror. And then she did something that would make all the difference. She placed her index finger over her lips, making the universal gesture of silence, while looking directly at Rex. Her eyes were fixed on the dog, as if she instinctively knew that it was with him that she needed to communicate. The gesture was deliberate, desperate, a silent plea from a child who knew her life depended on that moment. What happened next surprised even Marcus, who had worked with Rex for 3 years. The dog stopped completely, froze in place, and instead of barking or continuing to advance as he would normally do when detecting a person, he sat down. He simply sat down, maintaining eye contact with the window, completely motionless and silent. His ears remained erect, his body tense and alert, but he didn't emit a single sound. Marcus understood immediately. Something was very wrong. Rex was trained to react to visual commands, but that specific reaction wasn't in the manual. They practiced hand signals during training, of course. Stop, sit, stay, search, attack. But that specific gesture, coming from an unknown child in a window, and Rex's response to it, that was something different. It was as if the dog had understood not just the physical gesture, but the emotional context behind it. As if Rex had understood that making noise would put the girl in danger. Central, I need immediate backup at Maple Street, 1847. Possible hostage situation involving a minor. Silent approach. Marcus whispered into the radio, his heart racing but his mind cold and calculating. Years of training had prepared him for moments like this. His voice was calm, controlled, but his hands trembled slightly as he held the radio. He knew the next few minutes would be crucial. While waiting for reinforcements, Marcus observed attentively. The girl had disappeared from the window as quickly as she had appeared. He tried to estimate how many people could be inside the house. The building wasn't huge, maybe about 150 square meters, 2 floors plus a basement according to the public records he could access mentally. He had studied most of the properties in his patrol area. It was part of his job to know the terrain. Marcus also noticed other details. There were crushed soda cans near the side entrance, cigarette marks on the ground. Someone was definitely using that property, and not just as temporary shelter. The marks suggested recent and regular occupation. He also saw what appeared to be a portable generator through one of the broken first-floor windows. This meant that whoever was inside had electricity. Rex remained in his position, alert but silent. The dog hadn't moved a centimeter since he sat down. It was impressive to see the level of control and intelligence of that animal. Marcus could see the concentration on Rex's face, the way his ears adjusted to capture every sound coming from the house. The dog was doing his job, but in a way that no training manual could have predicted. He had understood that this was not a common operation, that he needed to adapt his behavior to protect whoever was in danger. Marcus's heart beat hard while he waited. Every second seemed like an eternity. He thought about the girl inside. Who was she? How had she ended up there? Was she hurt? How many people were with her? These were questions that spun in his mind, but he knew he needed to stay calm. Acting impulsively could put the child in even greater danger. 5 minutes later, which seemed like an eternity, 3 squad cars arrived silently at the location, without sirens. The officers knew it was a delicate situation. They parked at a safe distance, out of direct line of sight from the house. Sergeant Jennifer Walsh, commander of the tactical unit, approached Marcus crouched down, using the parked cars as cover. Jennifer was 42 years old and had an impeccable reputation in the department. She was known for her calm under pressure and her ability to resolve hostage situations without violence whenever possible. She had short red hair, penetrating green eyes, and a presence that commanded immediate respect. Situation? She asked in a low voice. Girl on the 2nd floor, probably hostage. Rex detected multiple presences inside. The child made a signal for us to be quiet, Marcus explained quickly, keeping his eyes fixed on the house. Jennifer nodded, her mind already working on possibilities, protocols, available strategies. How many adults do you estimate? Jennifer asked. At least 2, possibly 3. The tire marks suggest a mid-size vehicle, probably an SUV. I saw electrical equipment inside, which means they've been established for some time, Marcus responded. Jennifer pulled out her radio. I need thermal cameras here now, and I want the negotiation unit on standby. Nobody makes a move until my order. Her 15 years of experience in high-risk situations was kicking in. She knew that haste was the enemy of perfection in cases like this. We'll surround the perimeter. You and Rex keep position. If she made visual contact with you, it's with you that she'll try to communicate again, Jennifer instructed. Marcus nodded. It made sense. The girl had established a connection, however brief. She trusted Rex enough to make that gesture. Changing now could confuse or frighten her even more. Officers began to position themselves discreetly around the property. They were calculated, silent, professional movements. Each officer knew exactly what his role was. Marcus's team was one of the best in Portland, trained for situations exactly like this. But each situation was unique. Each hostage was a person with their own story. Each criminal had their own motivations, and Jennifer was right. 15 minutes later, the girl appeared again at the window. This time she was holding something. It was a paper torn from a notebook, crumpled at the edges. She pressed it against the dirty window glass. Written in large, uneven but legible letters, with what appeared to be a black marker, 2 armed men, basement. Marcus's heart raced. That brave girl was risking everything to pass information. She wasn't just waiting to be rescued. She was actively helping in her own rescue. Marcus made a discreet gesture with his hand, a thumbs-up signal, indicating that he had understood the message. The girl waved briefly and disappeared again from the window. We have visual confirmation, Marcus reported over the radio. 2 armed suspects in the basement. The hostage is cooperating and providing information. Jennifer absorbed the information quickly. This changes everything. If they're in the basement, we have opportunities. The thermal camera team is 2 minutes away. We'll confirm exact positions before making any move. While they waited, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the girl. How much courage was necessary to do what she was doing? Most adults would go into total panic in a situation like that. But this child was keeping calm, thinking strategically, helping her rescuers, who had taught her to do this. Where did that strength come from? Rex remained seated, but Marcus could see from the tension in his muscles that the dog was ready to act when necessary. It was like a compressed spring, full of potential energy, waiting to be released. But for now, silence was his most powerful weapon. The tactical unit van arrived, camouflaged as a public services vehicle. From inside it, technicians pulled out specialized equipment. The thermal cameras were cutting-edge technology, capable of detecting heat signatures through walls. In a few minutes, they had a clear image of the situation inside the house. Confirmed, reported the technician. 3 heat signatures, 2 in the basement, as the girl said. 1 on the 2nd floor, presumably the hostage. The 2 in the basement are close to each other, stationary. The 1 on the 2nd floor is moving slowly, pattern consistent with someone trying to be silent. Jennifer studied the data. We need a distraction, something that makes the 2 concentrate on a single point, away from the girl. We can't risk them using her as a shield when they perceive our presence. That's when Marcus had an idea. Rex can do that. He can create movement on the opposite side of the house, make them think the entry will be there. He's trained for distraction operations. Jennifer hesitated. It was risky. If something went wrong, if the men decided to do something drastic. But looking at Rex, at that exceptional canine who had demonstrated intelligence beyond the ordinary that afternoon, she agreed. Make it happen. But Marcus, be very careful. We don't want Rex in unnecessary danger. Understood, Marcus responded. He knew he was asking a lot of his partner, but he also completely trusted Rex's abilities. The operation was planned with surgical precision. The tactical team discovered that there was an entrance to the basement through the side of the house, hidden by dense vegetation. It was an old entrance, probably used for coal delivery decades ago, when the house was built. The thermal cameras confirmed that this entrance wasn't being watched by the men. The plan was simple but risky. Rex would create commotion on the west side of the house, attracting the attention of the 2 men. Meanwhile, the tactical team would enter silently through the side entrance of the basement. Simultaneously, 2 officers would climb the external fire escape to the 2nd floor to ensure the girl's safety. Timing would be everything. Everyone in position, Jennifer asked over the radio. A series of confirmations arrived from different points around the property. Marcus led Rex to the west side of the house, keeping out of sight from the windows. His heart was racing, but his hands were steady. He looked into Rex's eyes, those intelligent eyes that had seen so many things, gone through so many dangerous situations. You can do this, partner, Marcus whispered. Rex, speak, he commanded in a low voice. Rex let out a series of loud and intimidating barks, typical of an attack dog. The sound echoed in the silent afternoon air, breaking the tension like thunder. Then, following Marcus's commands through hand signals, Rex began scratching the house's wooden wall with his front paws, creating noises that could clearly be heard from inside. The sound was aggressive, threatening, exactly the kind of thing that would make someone think that an attack dog was about to find a way in. The strategy worked perfectly. Through the thermal cameras, the team saw the two figures in the basement move quickly toward the side where Rex was creating the commotion. Muffled voices could be heard, hurried discussions about what to do, if it was the police, how many police officers there were. "Now!" Jennifer ordered over the radio. The tactical team invaded through the side entrance of the basement with speed and precision. There were 5 specially trained officers using complete tactical equipment. They moved as a unit, each covering the other, advancing through the dark basement with flashlights attached to their weapons. At the same time, 2 officers silently climbed to the second floor via the external fire escape. The coordination was perfect, result of hundreds of hours of training. "Police! Hands on your head! Now!" The shouts came simultaneously from the basement. There was a moment of confusion, sounds of struggle, but in less than 2 minutes, everything was over. The 2 men were detained without a single shot. They were so focused on the side of the house where Rex was making noise that they were completely caught by surprise by the team that came from the opposite direction. On the second floor, the 2 officers found the girl in a small back room. She was scared, but unharmed, at least physically. "It's all right now," Officer Daniel Chen said gently, kneeling to be at eye level with her. "You're safe. We're from the police." The girl nodded, tears beginning to stream down her face. They were tears of relief, of release from all that tension she had held for days. "The dog, the police dog, he helped me," she managed to say between sobs. "Yes, he helped," Daniel confirmed with a gentle smile. "He's very smart, and you were very brave too." In the basement, the 2 men were handcuffed and searched. Derek Mason, 34 years old, was a large man, about 185 meters tall, with tattooed arms and a scar that cut through his left eyebrow. Tyler Krosky, 29 years old, was shorter and thinner, with long hair tied in a ponytail. Both had extensive criminal records. Derek had records for assault, illegal possession of a weapon, and domestic violence. Tyler had served 3 years for extortion in Montana. 2 pistols were found on an improvised table in the basement, along with cell phones, a laptop, and documents that clearly belonged to someone else. The subsequent investigation would reveal they were the Rodriguez family's documents, stolen when Emma was kidnapped. K9 Unit 7. "Situation under control," Jennifer reported on the central radio. 2 suspects in custody, hostage safe and apparently not injured. "Requesting ambulance and child protective services at the location," Marcus called Rex back. The dog immediately stopped barking and ran to his partner, tongue out, clearly satisfied to have done his job. Marcus knelt and hugged Rex, feeling his heart still racing. "Good boy, very good boy," he repeated several times, his voice choked with emotion. The girl was brought out of the house carefully. She was wrapped in a silver thermal blanket that the paramedics had provided. Her eyes were still red from crying, but there was a strength in them that Marcus immediately recognized. This child was a survivor. Her name was Emma Rodriguez, and she had been kidnapped 3 days earlier when returning from school in Seattle, Washington, about 280 kilometers away. She was in 3rd grade at Madison Elementary School, an intelligent and vivacious girl who loved art and math. On that fateful Monday, she had missed the school bus. Her parents, Carmen and Roberto Rodriguez, had been notified, and Carmen was on her way to pick her up when Emma decided to walk home. It was only 1.5 kilometers, a path she knew well. Derek and Tyler had approached her in a white van. Tyler pretended to be lost, asking for directions. Emma, polite as she had been taught, approached to help. That's when Derek got out of the side of the van and grabbed her. They put her inside the vehicle in seconds, covering her mouth before she could scream. Witnesses saw the white van accelerate, but couldn't see the plate. Her parents had moved heaven and earth looking for her. The case became national news within 24 hours. Roberto and Carmen appeared on all local news programs, pleading for their daughter's safe return. The FBI was activated, as is standard in child kidnapping cases that cross state lines. Hundreds of police officers and volunteers had searched for Emma, but there were no concrete clues until that anonymous call that Tuesday. The kidnappers, identified as Derek Mason and Tyler Krosky, had a carefully elaborated plan. They had monitored the Rodriguez family for weeks. Roberto and Carmen were owners of a chain of 7 successful restaurants in the Seattle area, specializing in authentic Mexican cuisine. The restaurants, called Casa Rodriguez, were popular and profitable. Derek and Tyler believed the family would pay any amount to have Emma back. The plan was to keep her hidden in Portland, away from Seattle where the search was concentrated for a week or 2. Then they would make contact, demanding a ransom of $1.5 million. They had chosen that abandoned house specifically because it was in a quiet neighborhood where no one would ask many questions about an empty property, suddenly having movement. But they had underestimated two things. First, the vigilant neighborhood of Portland, where that anonymous woman noticed the suspicious behavior and made the call. Second, and more importantly, they underestimated Emma Rodriguez. When Emma was rescued, still trembling with cold and fear, the first thing she asked was to see Rex. It was an unusual request, but after everything that had happened, after the crucial role Rex had played, no one had the heart to deny it. Marcus took her to where the dog was, beside the squad car. He was very smart, Emma said with a small voice but firm. He understood what I meant. Yes, he understood, Marcus confirmed. Emotional. You were very brave, Emma. How did you know what to do? The scene that followed moved all the police officers present. Emma knelt in front of Rex, her small hands reaching for the dog's soft fur. Rex, with the gentleness characteristic of dogs well trained to work with victims, stayed completely still, letting the girl hug him. She buried her face in his neck, whispering, "Thank you," repeatedly, while tears streamed down her face. Rex remained quiet, only occasionally gently licking Emma's arm, as if he knew she needed that connection. It was a moment of pure beauty in the midst of a terrible situation. The officers around had to look away, discreetly wiping their own eyes. Even the paramedics, accustomed to seeing all kinds of trauma, were visibly emotional. "How did you know to make that signal to him?" Marcus asked gently, after Emma was calmer, still wrapped in her thermal blanket, but now sitting in the ambulance. Emma explained that 3 weeks earlier, her school had had a special presentation about personal safety. A police officer had visited Madison Elementary with his K9, a Belgian Malinois named Duke. During the presentation, the officer explained how police dogs were trained, how they could help in emergencies, and how children could interact with them safely. He said that police dogs understand signals. Emma explained, her voice still trembling, that they're very intelligent and can understand when something is wrong. "I remembered that when I saw Rex. I thought that if I made a signal, maybe he would understand that I needed help, but that it had to be silent." It was an incredibly sophisticated thought for an 8-year-old child in a situation of extreme stress. But Emma had paid attention in that presentation. She had absorbed information that now saved her life. "The men didn't know I was at the window," Emma continued. "They left me in that room and told me to stay quiet. There was a lock on the outside, but it was broken. I managed to open the door very slowly. When I heard a dog barking outside, I looked out the window and saw Rex. I knew he was a police dog from his uniform." The uniform Emma mentioned was the tactical vest Rex wore, clearly marked with Police K9 in large letters. It was this vest that had given Emma the confidence that Rex could help her. "You saved your own life," Jennifer commented later with Marcus, while the scene was processed by forensic investigators. The house was now full of officers, each fulfilling their role in documenting the crime. Camera flashlights blinked while evidence was catalogued, but it was Rex who understood. Not all K9s would have that capacity for adaptation. "You form an exceptional team." Marcus looked at Rex, who was lying beside the squad car, contentedly chewing a toy that Marcus always carried for him. "He's always been special," Marcus said simply, "since day one." Emma's parents arrived 2 hours later, having driven like crazy from Seattle as soon as they received the call. Carmen got out of the car before it even stopped completely, running toward the ambulance where Emma was being examined. The reunion was intense, full of tears, desperate hugs, and words of love repeated indefinitely. Roberto wasn't far behind, his eyes also full of tears as he hugged his daughter as if he would never let her go. My babe," Carmen repeated, checking every inch of Emma, looking for injuries. The paramedics assured that physically Emma was fine. She was dehydrated, had some minor scratches, and was obviously traumatized, but there were no signs of serious physical abuse. The kidnappers, despite their criminal intentions, apparently hadn't physically hurt Emma. They needed her whole and healthy for the ransom. But the psychological trauma was real and deep. Emma would have a long road ahead to process those 3 days. 3 days that must have seemed like an eternity for an 8-year-old child. 3 days of not knowing if she would see her parents again, of being at the mercy of strangers, of being afraid every second. Carmen and Roberto made a point of meeting Marcus and Rex. "How can we thank you?" Roberto asked, his voice broken with emotion. "You brought our daughter back." "It was a team effort," Marcus responded humbly, "and Emma was incredibly brave. She helped us help her." Roberto knelt in front of Rex. The dog looked at him with those calm and intelligent eyes. "Thank you, friend," Roberto said, running his hand over Rex's head. "Thank you for bringing my girl back." Rex, who had been trained to accept thanks from strangers, remained calm, his tail wagging gently. For him, this was simply another day of work. He didn't understand the magnitude of what he had done, didn't comprehend that he had saved a life and reunited a family. All he knew was that Marcus was proud of him, and that was enough. The story of Emma and Rex spread quickly. A reporter from a local newspaper who was monitoring the police scanner arrived at the location while the operation was still in progress. He couldn't get close due to the security perimeter, but managed to get some photos from a distance and spoke briefly with officers who weren't directly involved in the operation. The next morning, the headline of the Portland Tribune said, "Hero K9 and Brave Girl, How a Silent Gesture Led to a Dramatic Rescue." The article detailed the events, obviously with the limitations of what could be disclosed during an ongoing investigation. But the essence of the story was there: a girl in danger, an exceptional police dog, and a moment of non-verbal communication that saved a life. Local media covered the rescue extensively. Within a week, the story had reached national notoriety. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC all covered the case. Emma and her parents appeared in an interview on Good Morning America, where Emma, still clearly shaken but surprisingly articulate, told her story. "I was so scared," she admitted in the interview, sitting between her parents on the studio couch. "But I remembered what I learned at school, and when I saw Rex, I knew he could help me. I just needed to make him understand." The Portland Police Department received hundreds of messages of support and gratitude. Letters arrived from all over the country, many of them addressed specifically to Rex, the hero dog. Marcus read some of them to Rex, who listened with his head tilted, as if he really understood. Children sent drawings of Rex with superhero capes. An entire third-grade class in Nebraska sent a giant card with signatures from all the students. But for Marcus and Rex, this was just part of the job. Except it wasn't just work. It was living proof that the connection between humans and animals goes far beyond what science can explain. Rex had demonstrated not just intelligence, but empathy, understanding, and the ability to adapt his behavior to a unique and dangerous situation. 3 weeks after the rescue, the Rodriguez family organized a small event in a Portland park to personally thank everyone involved in the operation. It was a sunny Saturday, unusual for Portland in November. The park was decorated with balloons and banners that said, "Thank you to our heroes." There were tables with food, music playing softly in the background, and an atmosphere of genuine celebration. All officers who had participated in the operation were invited. Jennifer Walsh was there with her family. Daniel Chen brought his wife and 2 small children. The technicians who operated the thermal cameras attended. Every person who had played a role, no matter how small, in Emma's rescue was recognized and thanked. But the star of the party was, undoubtedly, Rex. When Marcus and Rex arrived, Emma ran to them. She was wearing a new dress, light blue, and had a flower tiara in her hair. She looked like a normal, happy child with no visible trauma. But Marcus knew the scars were there, invisible but real. Emma had a gift for Rex. It was a portrait that she herself had drawn in her art classes. The drawing showed Rex sitting, heroic, with the sun rising behind him. He was wearing a gold medal on his chest. Below, with her childish but careful handwriting, was written, "For Rex, my silent hero, with love, Emma." The drawing was surprisingly good for an 8-year-old child. Emma had captured Rex's essence. The intelligence in his eyes, the dignity in his posture. Marcus had to swallow the lump in his throat. Even after years in the police force, having seen difficult situations and solved complicated cases, that moment touched him deeply. "Can I frame this?" Marcus asked, his voice choked. "It's yours," Emma responded with a smile. "For you to remember." "As if I could forget," Marcus said softly. Emma had also brought a bag full of special dog treats, the most expensive kind that exists. Rex, in turn, accepted the treats with the tranquil dignity of someone who simply did what he was born to do: protect and serve. He chewed contentedly while Emma petted him, telling him about her school, her friends, the normal things in the life of an 8-year-old child. "You know," Emma said while running her hand through Rex's fur, "I still have nightmares about that house, about those men, but I also dream about you, Rex. And when I dream about you, the nightmares go away." Carmen heard her daughter and felt tears arise again. Emma's recovery path would be long. She was doing therapy 3 times a week with a psychologist specialized in child trauma. There was progress, but also difficult days. Days when Emma woke up screaming, days when she didn't want to leave the house, days when fear consumed her. But there were also good days, days when she laughed with her friends, days when she drew and painted, expressing her emotions through art, days when she seemed like the carefree girl she was before the kidnapping. The resilience of children is extraordinary, and Emma was proving it every day. The story brought significant changes, not only for Emma and her family, but for the Portland Police Department as a whole. Police Chief Robert Anderson, a 58-year-old man with 35 years of service, saw in the case an opportunity to improve the department's K9 program. "What happened with Rex and Emma showed us that we need to think beyond conventional training," Anderson said at a departmental meeting, 2 weeks after the rescue. We need to develop protocols that teach our canines to recognize and respond to situations involving children in danger. We need them to be not just attack or search dogs, but true partners who can adapt their behavior to unique circumstances. The department implemented a new training program for canines, focused specifically on situations involving children and non-verbal signals. Marcus and Rex were invited to help develop the protocol, sharing their experiences and demonstrating the techniques they had used. The program included modules on child body language, recognition of distress signals, and behavioral adaptation. Trainers worked with volunteer children, teaching them to make different signals and then training the dogs to respond appropriately. It was pioneering work, something no other police department was doing at that depth. What happened that day changed my perspective on what these animals are capable of, Marcus said in an interview for Police K9 magazine, a specialized publication read by K9 officers across the country. Rex didn't just follow orders, he assessed the situation, understood the danger, and made a decision. This goes far beyond conventional training. This is real intelligence, applied in real time to a situation he had never encountered before. The article in the magazine generated significant interest. Police departments from other cities began contacting Portland, wanting to learn about the program. Marcus and Jennifer were invited to conferences in Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and even Boston to share their experiences. Meanwhile, the criminal investigation against Derek Mason and Tyler Krauske advanced. The prosecutors were building a solid case. In addition to Emma's kidnapping, the investigation revealed that the duo was involved in other crimes. The laptop found in the abandoned house contained evidence of credit card fraud and identity theft affecting at least 23 victims in 3 states. Derek Mason and Tyler Krauske were formally charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, attempted extortion, electronic fraud, identity theft, and illegal possession of firearms. The list of charges was extensive. Each crime carried its own potential sentence, and combined, the 2 men faced decades in prison. The trial occurred 6 months after the rescue. Emma, now 9 years old, had to testify. It was a traumatic experience, but her parents and therapist prepared her carefully. The prosecutor, an experienced lawyer named Michael Chen, was gentle with her, asking simple and direct questions. "Emma, can you tell me what happened on the day you were taken?" Michael asked softly. Emma, sitting in the witness chair with a special elevated seat for children, told her story. Her voice was low but clear. She described how Tyler had asked for directions, how Derek had grabbed her, the 3 days in the abandoned house, and then she described that crucial moment at the window when she saw Rex. "I knew he was a police dog," Emma said, "and I remembered what I learned at school, so I did this." She placed her finger over her lips, making the gesture that was now famous. And he understood. He just understood. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even the judge, a severe woman named Margaret Sullivan with 20 years on the bench, had to pause to compose herself. The jurors were visibly emotional, and in the gallery, Carmen and Roberto held each other's hands so tightly that their knuckles were white. Derek Mason and Tyler Krauske were convicted on all charges. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours before returning with the verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The word echoed repeatedly in the courtroom as the clerk read the verdicts for each charge. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Sullivan was relentless. "You took an innocent child," she said, looking directly at the 2 men. "You tore her from her family, kept her in captivity, caused psychological trauma that she will carry for the rest of her life. You did this not out of necessity, but out of greed. You did it coldly, calculatedly, and you need to face the full consequences of your actions." Derek Mason was sentenced to 42 years in prison without possibility of parole for 25 years. Tyler Krauske received 38 years with possibility of parole after 20 years. Both would be old men when and if they were released. When the sentence was read, Carmen hugged Roberto, both crying tears of relief. Justice had been done. The men who terrorized their daughter would be off the streets for decades. Emma, sitting between her parents, just nodded silently. It was a chapter that could be closed, although the following pages of her life would still be influenced by those 3 days. Emma ended up becoming an active advocate for police canine work. With the support of her parents and therapist, she channeled her trauma into purpose. Now 10 years old, she frequently participates in educational events at schools, telling her story and teaching other children about personal safety. Children need to know that police dogs aren't just to scare bad guys, Emma explains, with impressive maturity for her age during these talks. "They're heroes who save lives. Rex saved mine, and if I hadn't learned about police dogs at school, I might not have known how to ask for help." Emma's presentations are powerful. She uses slides with photos of Rex, K9 training videos, and even live demonstrations when possible. And whenever possible, Marcus and Rex accompany her on these visits. Seeing Rex in person being able to interact with him, makes everything real for the children. He's not just an abstract concept of police dog. He's Rex, a real animal with personality, who did something heroic and saved a child like them. When you see a police dog, Emma tells the children, remember what they can do. If you're in danger, if you need help, these dogs can be your saviors. But you need to know how to communicate with them, how to show that you need help without making noise if it's dangerous to make noise. Oregon schools began incorporating these lessons into their safety curricula. The Rex Protocol, as it was informally nicknamed, teaches children about different non-verbal signals they can use in emergencies. The silence gesture that Emma used became part of standard training. The special bond between Emma and Rex continued over the years. The Rodriguez family became close to Marcus and his family. Marcus was married to Lisa, a high school teacher, and they had 2 children, Jake, 12 years old, and Sophie, 9 years old. The 2 families began meeting regularly for dinners, barbecues, and special occasions. On holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, it was common for the 2 families to gather. Emma and Sophie became close friends. Despite Emma being a year older, they shared a love for art and often drew together. Sophie, inspired by the story of her almost sister, also developed a deep respect for police dogs and declared she wanted to work with animals when she grew up. Rex, of course, was the center of attention at these gatherings. Jake loved playing ball with him in the backyard. Sophie liked brushing his fur. And Emma always reserved special time to simply sit with Rex, pet him, talk to him. It was therapeutic for her, this time with the dog who had saved her life. "You know, Rex," Emma would say during these moments, "I don't remember much about those 3 days. My therapist says it's normal that my brain is protecting me, but I remember you. I remember your face in the window, your intelligent eyes. I remember thinking he's going to help me, and you did." Rex, who didn't understand the words but certainly understood the tone and emotion, stayed quiet during these moments, his head resting on Emma's lap, his eyes half closed with contentment. Rex received the Medal of Valor from the Portland Police Department, an honor rarely granted to canines. In the 87 years of the department's history, only 6 other dogs had received this distinction. The ceremony was held in the main auditorium of City Hall, with complete media coverage. The mayor of Portland, Thomas Bradley, personally delivered the medal. "Rex represents the best of what law enforcement can be," the mayor said in his speech. "Intelligence, courage, dedication, and a protective instinct that goes beyond training." He saved Emma Rodriguez's life through a combination of trained skill and something that can only be described as genuine empathy. At the ceremony, while the medal was placed on his special collar, Rex remained seated, looking at the crowd with those intelligent eyes that had understood a frightened girl's silent gesture. He didn't understand the pomp and circumstance, didn't comprehend the meaning of the medal, but he could feel that Marcus was proud, and that was all that mattered to him. Emma was in the front row during the ceremony, sitting between her parents. When the time came, she was invited to go up on stage. With hands trembling slightly, she read a letter she had written for Rex. "Dear Rex, I wanted to thank you for saving me. I was very scared in that house, and I thought I would never see my mommy and daddy again. But then I saw you, and I knew everything was going to be okay. You are the bravest and smartest dog in the world. You understood what I needed without me having to speak. That's very special. I'm better now. I still have nightmares sometimes, but I'm getting better. And when I get scared, I think about you, and it makes me feel safe. Thank you for being a hero. Thank you for saving me. With much love, Emma." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience when Emma finished reading. The standing ovation was immediate and prolonged. Emma knelt and hugged Rex, who accepted the hug with the patience and gentleness that characterized his personality. "Some call it instinct, others training. I call it something greater," Police Chief Robert Anderson said during the ceremony. Rex reminded us that sometimes true heroism lies in knowing when not to make noise, when to observe, when to understand that the situation requires more than brute force. He showed us that intelligence and empathy are the greatest weapons a police officer can have, whether human or canine. The story of Rex and Emma also inspired changes at the state level. The Oregon Legislative Assembly passed the K-9 Child Protection Act, which required all K-9 units in the state to include in their training specific modules on recognizing nonverbal distress signals, especially from children. The law was signed by Governor Catherine Mills at a special ceremony where, again, Emma, Rex, and Marcus were guests of honor. "This law ensures that Rex's legacy goes far beyond a single heroic rescue," Governor Mills said during the signing. "It ensures that K-9s throughout Oregon will be better prepared to recognize and respond to children in danger. How many lives will be saved because of this? We can't know. But we know that Emma Rodriguez is alive today because of the combination of her own heroism and Rex's exceptional intelligence." The program, informally nicknamed the Rex Protocol, quickly gained national attention. Other states began considering similar legislation. Within 2 years, 6 states had adopted versions of the protocol: Washington, California, Idaho, Nevada, Montana, and Arizona. Marcus frequently reflected on that November afternoon that changed so many lives. If Rex had reacted in the conventional way, barking and advancing, the kidnappers would have heard, he said in an interview for the New York Times that did an extensive profile on the case. Emma could have been hurt or used as a shield, but Rex stopped. He simply stopped and waited. Those seconds of silence saved a life. I'll never forget that moment. I'll never stop marveling at what happened. The experience also profoundly changed the way Marcus trained new K9s. He became chief instructor of Portland's K9 program, responsible for supervising the training of all new dogs and officers. He now emphasized the importance of developing not just obedience, but also the ability to assess complex situations. We want dogs that think, not just obey blindly, he explained to new trainers at regular seminars. A dog that just obeys commands is useful, but a dog that can assess a situation, understand context, and adapt its behavior, that's a true partner. That's the kind of K9 that saves lives. Rex taught me that, and now it's my mission to pass that knowledge forward. For Emma, the traumatic experience transformed into life purpose. She maintains a blog called Paws for Heroes, where she shares stories of hero police dogs from across the country, educating her peers and adults about the importance of these animals in police work. The blog has thousands of followers, and frequently receives submissions from other police departments wanting to share their own stories. Many people are afraid of police dogs, Emma writes in one of her most popular posts. I understand that. They're big, they're trained to be intimidating, and yes, they can be dangerous to bad people, but they're trained to protect, not to hurt innocent people. Rex protected me without knowing me, just because it was his job. But I think it was more than work. I think it was love. Unconditional love that dogs have for humanity. The case also raised important discussions about child safety at a national level. Child protection experts began including education about police dogs in their programs. Emma's gesture, as the silent signal she made to Rex became known, is now taught as an emergency communication tool in child safety programs in 23 states. Dr. Patricia Morrison, a child psychologist specialized in trauma and recovery, wrote extensively about the case. What Emma demonstrated was an extraordinary combination of knowledge retained from safety education, quick thinking under extreme pressure, and pure courage, Dr. Morrison wrote in an article for the Journal of Child Psychology. Many adults would collapse completely in a similar situation. The fact that Emma managed to maintain enough composure to not only recognize a rescue opportunity, but also act on it strategically is remarkable. Her case should be studied as an example of how appropriate education can save lives. Animal behavior experts also studied the case extensively. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a behavioral veterinarian from the University of Oregon, spent months studying Rex, conducting intelligence and adaptability tests. What Rex demonstrated was a rare combination of high-level training, natural intelligence, and something we can only describe as intuition. Dr. Mitchell wrote in a scientific article that was published in the Journal of Applied Animal Behavior Science. He read the child's body language, assessed the environmental context, understood there was invisible danger, and adapted his behavior in a way that wasn't part of his explicit training. The article continued, "This suggests a level of understanding and decision-making that challenges our traditional conceptions of canine cognition." Rex wasn't simply following a trained script. He was improvising, adapting, solving a problem in real time. It's extraordinary. The article generated significant debate in the scientific community. Some researchers argued that Rex was simply responding to subtle body language cues that had been part of his training, even if not consciously taught. Others argued that Rex's behavior demonstrated a true understanding of the situation that went beyond conditioned response. Regardless of the scientific debate, the practical impact was clear. Rex had saved a life through a combination of training, natural intelligence, and something more that is difficult to quantify but impossible to deny when you see it. Today, Rex is 8 years old and continues in active service, although Marcus knows that soon the time for retirement will come. Police dogs of large breeds like German Shepherds generally retire between 8 and 10 years, depending on their health and physical capacity. Rex is still in excellent shape, but Marcus can see small signs of age. The dog is a bit slower when waking up in the morning. He needs more warm-up time before intense exercises. These are small things, but Marcus knows his partner intimately and recognizes the signs. When that day comes, it's already decided. Rex will live with Marcus's family, as every hero K9 deserves. Lisa and the children are already anxious for it. They've transformed the basement into a comfortable space where Rex will have his own area, away from the hustle and bustle of daily life when he needs rest. There's a special orthopedic bed already ordered, designed for older dogs with possible joint problems. But until then, Rex continues doing what he does best, protecting and serving the Portland community. He's involved in 5 or 6 calls per week, ranging from searches for missing persons to support in high-risk situations. Each call is treated with the same seriousness and dedication. For Rex, there are no small calls. Each situation receives his total focus. Marcus is also considering his own future. He's been with the department for 15 years and could retire with full pension in another 10. But he's thinking about transitioning earlier to a full-time training role. I can do more good training the next generation of K9 teams than I can on daily patrols, he confided to Lisa recently. I have knowledge and experience that need to be passed forward. And after what happened with Rex and Emma, I feel it's my responsibility to ensure that other officers and their K9 partners are prepared for similar situations. The friendship between Emma and Rex became a symbol of something greater than the individual case. In a world often divided and full of cynicism, especially about law enforcement and its relationship with the community, their story reminds us that kindness exists, that heroes are real, and that sometimes they have 4 paws and a heart the size of the world. Marcus keeps in his wallet a photo from that day, Emma hugging Rex right after the rescue, both exhausted but safe. Emma was still wrapped in the silver thermal blanket, her hair messy, her eyes red from crying. Rex was sitting beside her, his tongue out, looking at the camera with that expression that seemed almost like a canine smile. It's a powerful photo, full of emotion and meaning. Whenever I have a difficult day, Marcus says, I look at that photo. It reminds me why I do what I do. It reminds me that each call can be the chance to change a life. It reminds me that the work we do matters, that it makes a real difference in the lives of real people. The Portland Police Department created a program called K9 Heroes that takes police dogs, both active and retired, to visit schools, hospitals, nursing homes, and community events. The goal is to build bridges between the police and the community, show the human and canine side of law enforcement, and educate the public about the important work these animals do. Rex is one of the most popular ambassadors of the program. Children love hearing him bark on command, seeing him demonstrate his search and detection skills, and of course, petting him when appropriate. But it's the story of the day he saved Emma that most fascinates young listeners. It's a story that has everything: danger, heroism, intelligence, and a happy ending. Did you see? Emma frequently asks the children during these visits, her voice now stronger and more confident than it was 2 years ago. Did you see how a small gesture can make a big difference? I was so scared that day, but I remembered what I learned at school. And Rex understood. He really understood. That's why it's so important to pay attention when you learn about safety. You never know when you're going to need to use that knowledge. The talks always end with a demonstration that never fails to move. Emma makes the silence gesture, and Rex, even years later, responds the same way he responded on that fateful day. He sits immediately, motionless, eyes fixed on Emma, waiting. Sometimes he even tilts his head slightly, as if asking, "Do you need help?" It's a powerful moment that never fails to move the audience, no matter how many times they see it. Children often approach Marcus and Emma after these presentations with questions. "Does Rex understand everything you say?" a 7-year-old girl asked once. "How did you teach him to be so smart?" a boy wanted to know. "Is he happy being a police dog?" another child questioned. Marcus answers each question with patience and honesty. Rex understands much more than words, he explains. He understands tone of voice, body language, context, and yes, I believe he's happy. He was bred for this work, trained for it since he was a puppy, doing what you were made to do that brings satisfaction, whether for humans or dogs. Emma usually adds, "And remember, you can help too. If you see someone who seems to be in danger, tell a trusted adult. If you find yourself in danger, remember what you learn. Knowledge saves lives. Rex saved me, but I also helped myself by knowing what to do." The story gained even an international dimension. K9 training organizations from Europe, Asia, South America, and even Australia contacted the Portland department to learn about the methods used in training Rex. Marcus and Jennifer were invited to international conferences in London, Berlin, Tokyo, and Sydney, where they shared their experiences and techniques. Rex isn't just an exceptional police dog, Jennifer explained at one of these conferences in London, speaking to an audience of more than 500 K9 officers from 34 countries. He's proof that when we combine quality training with respect for the intelligence and natural capabilities of these animals, the results can be extraordinary. We're not creating obedient machines. We're forming genuine partnerships between humans and animals based on mutual trust, respect, and understanding. The presentation included videos of Rex's training, interviews with Marcus, and of course, Emma's story. At the end, there was a 5-minute standing ovation. Police officers from around the world, people who had seen everything in their careers, were visibly moved by the story of an 8-year-old girl and a dog who communicated through a silent gesture. The Rodriguez family established a foundation called Silent Heroes Foundation that raises funds to support canine training programs in underserved communities. The idea is to ensure that even small police departments in rural areas or cities with limited budgets can have access to quality K9 units. Emma was saved by Rex, Carmen explained in an interview about the foundation. Now we want to ensure that other Rexes exist out there, ready to save other children, other families. It's our way of giving back, of transforming something terrible that happened to us into something positive for others. The foundation has already donated over $1.2 million to police departments in rural areas and small cities in 7 states, helping to establish and maintain quality canine units. They not only provide funds to purchase and train the dogs, but also cover ongoing costs like veterinary care, equipment, and updated training. One of the first beneficiaries was a small police department in a rural town in Idaho called Silverbrook, with a population of only 3,500 people. They had never had a K9 due to budget constraints. With the foundation's help, they acquired and trained Max, a German Shepherd, who 2 years later located an autistic child who had gotten lost in the forest during winter. The child was alive because of Max, who found them in less than 4 hours. It's the ripple effect, Roberto Rodriguez says proudly. Rex saved Emma. Now, through the foundation, Rex indirectly helped save another child, and another, and more others. Each life saved by a K9 we trained or equipped through the foundation is part of Rex's legacy. Emma developed a special interest in animal training that goes far beyond casual. She spends her summers volunteering at a local K9 training center called Pacific Northwest K9 Academy, helping with basic tasks and learning about the different aspects of the work. She cleans kennels, helps prepare meals for the dogs, observes training sessions, and takes detailed notes about everything she learns. When I grow up, she says, with the unwavering conviction of youth, I want to train police dogs. I want to create more heroes like Rex. I want every child who goes through what I went through to have the chance to be saved by a dog as special as him. The trainers at Pacific Northwest K9 Academy are impressed with Emma's dedication. She's only 10 years old, but she already understands concepts that take years for some adults to comprehend, says Thomas Wright, Academy director and trainer with 25 years of experience. She has a natural empathy with dogs, an ability to read their body language that's rare. If she continues on this path, I have no doubt she'll be an exceptional trainer. Marcus sees a bright future for the girl. He's already taken her to several conferences and seminars where Emma observes and learns. On some occasions, she's even made brief presentations telling her story and explaining the importance of well-trained police dogs. Seeing a child speaking with such passion and knowledge about the subject impacts listeners in a unique way. If someone is going to revolutionize K9 training in the future, it might well be her, Marcus says. She has personal experience that most trainers will never have. She understands in a visceral, deep way what's at stake, and that, combined with her passion and intelligence, can take her very far. Rex, oblivious to his fame and the lasting impact he's had on the world of canine policing, continues living his life with the simplicity characteristic of dogs. For him, that November day was just another day of work, although probably a confusing day where normal routines were interrupted. He doesn't know he's a national hero, doesn't understand the awards or recognition, doesn't comprehend that his photo is on police station walls from Portland to Miami. All Rex knows is that when Marcus puts on his work vest, it's time to do what he loves. Go out, explore, use his extraordinary nose to find things, occasionally chase bad people, and protect his human partner. And when the workday ends, there's delicious food, time to play, and the affection of the Thompson family. For a dog, that's a good life, a happy life. But in the eyes of Emma, Marcus, and everyone who knows his story, Rex is much more than a simple, happy dog. He's a symbol of everything that is good and noble in police work. He's a reminder that with proper training, dedication, and a bit of that indefinable magic that some animals possess, lives can be saved and families can be reunited. The partnership between Marcus and Rex became legendary within the department and beyond. New officers who want to work with K9s often ask to accompany their patrols, wanting to learn from Portland's most famous duo. Marcus always accepts when his schedule allows, seeing this as an opportunity to teach not just about police procedures, but about the deep bond that can exist between an officer and his canine partner. Rex isn't just my work companion, Marcus explains to new recruits during these observation sessions. He's my partner in the truest sense of the word. I trust him with my life, and he trusts me with his. That's the foundation of a successful K9 team. Without that trust, without that bond, you just have an officer and a dog working in the same space. But with it, you have a unit that's greater than the sum of its parts. The story of Emma and Rex teaches us several important lessons that resonate far beyond the specific case. About courage in the face of paralyzing fear. About not giving up even in the most frightening and apparently hopeless situations. About the importance of paying attention in safety classes at school, because we never know when we're going to need that knowledge to save our own lives or the lives of others. About trusting our instincts when something seems wrong. Emma trusted her instinct that Rex could help her, and acted based on that intuition even while being terrified. About having the courage to act even when we're afraid, because courage isn't the absence of fear, but action despite fear. But perhaps the most important and profound lesson is about connection. The connection that exists between humans and animals, a link that transcends words and spoken language, that is based on mutual understanding, respect, and love. Emma and Rex communicated through a simple gesture, but that communication was more eloquent, more meaningful than 1,000 words could have been. It was a moment of pure understanding between two different species, united by a moment of danger and the fundamental need to help and protect. Today, when you see a police dog on the street working with his human partner, remember the story of Rex and Emma. Remember that behind that large and impressive animal exists an enormous heart, hundreds of hours of exceptional training, and the innate capacity to make incredible differences in people's lives. They're not just dogs doing tricks, they're trained professionals, trusted partners, and yes, four-legged heroes, always ready to protect and serve their communities. And if you're a child or teenager watching this video, maybe even with your own parents, remember Emma's gesture, remember her courage, how she used what she had learned at school to save her own life. It's never too early to learn about personal safety. Pay attention in safety classes at school. Know the signs of danger. Know that in an emergency, those police dogs that may seem intimidating are in fact your greatest allies, trained to protect exactly people like you. Rex continues patrolling the streets of Portland, side by side with Marcus, doing the work he loves in sun or rain, on cold winter days or warm summer afternoons. Each day, he may be saving lives in ways we'll never know, preventing crimes before they happen simply by his presence, locating lost people before it's too late. But we definitely know of one life he saved, and we know the monumental difference that a moment of silent understanding made. Emma is growing up strong, confident, and determined to make a difference in the world. The trauma of those 3 days in captivity left scars, that's undeniable, and it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. She still has occasional nightmares where she wakes up screaming. She developed some specific phobias, like fear of white vans and resistance to being alone in small rooms. Her therapist says these reactions are completely normal and may diminish with time and continued treatment. But with consistent psychological support, the unconditional love of her family, loyal friends, and the purpose she found in helping others, she's not just surviving, but truly thriving. Her grades at school are excellent. She has a solid group of friends who support her. She laughs, plays, has fun like any child her age should. The difficult days still come, but the good days are much more numerous. Rex gave me a second chance at life, Emma says frequently, with a maturity that seems impossible for her age. Now, I want to pay it forward. I want other children to know that there's always hope, even in the darkest and scariest moments, and that sometimes, just sometimes, hope has 4 paws, a wagging tail and a wet nose that sniffs out danger before it's too late. This is the complete story of Emma Rodriguez and Rex, the police dog who understood a silent gesture and saved a life. It's a story about fear and courage, about real danger and heroic rescue, about an extraordinary connection that transcended words and saved a precious life. A story that reminds us, amid the cynicism and negativity that sometimes dominate our lives and news, that there are still true heroes in the world, and some of those heroes have 4 paws, soft fur, intelligent and loyal eyes, an always curious nose, and a heart so big and so full of love and dedication that it's impossible to measure. They serve beside us, protect our communities, save lives, and ask for very little in return, just food, affection, and the opportunity to do the work they were born to do. Rex is one of those heroes. And thanks to him, Emma Rodriguez is alive, her family is complete, and the world learned a valuable lesson about the incredible capacity for connection between humans and animals when both are willing to listen, understand, and act with courage and compassion.